Okay, so we're ready then, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to go to the next slide, Steph? So. Oh, the one with the, okay, lovely, that's great. Okay, do you want me, are we live, Steph?
Yes, we are live, yeah, so everybody's in the room. Yeah.
Okay, this is most, well, can I start off by welcoming everybody who's in attendance to this evening's meeting, which is the one of a number of meetings we've had in relation to liaison with residents in regard to both the Mill Road and Cromwell Road sites. So welcome everybody, and do please feel free to ask questions as we go through the evening. My name's Mike Davey. I'm one of the Petersfield City Councillors. I'm also, for my sins, the Executive Councillor for Finance and Resources, which means that I end up sitting on the Cambridge Investment Partnership Board. So I have a foot in two camps on this. And so I hope I'll be able to answer any questions you might have in relation to matters political and with regard to the board. But otherwise, we've got a very strong range of participants who will be able to answer your more detailed questions. We've got the agenda in front of us. We've got a scheme overview from Mark and Ben. We've got an overview of the artwork from Clara. Then we'll go into an overview of the new community centre, which I know a lot of people will be interested from Diane and John, I think, from Plaque. Then we'll open it up for questions and contact details for the future, with an aim to finish around 7:30. I hope that's okay for yourselves. And as I say, please don't hesitate to put things in the chat if you want to ask us any questions. So if we start off then, if I hand over now straight away to Mark, and oh, sorry. Yes, the purpose of the briefing, the formal bit, sorry, formal purpose of the briefing, format, brief progress on the update, but a question and answer focus, listen and pass on issues and concerns and raise them to relevant parties. Kip, Council and Hill, recordings and all FAQs are on the website here. Okay, thank you, Steph. Shall we move on to the next slide, which I think will be Mark. There we go. Mark, over to you. Oh, you're on mute, Mark. Mark, you're on mute.
Sorry, I've managed to get my camera on, but not unmute myself. If we go to the next slide, please, Steph. This is just a brief update on where we are with Mill Road and Ironworks. This picture was taken not that long ago, so it shows quite a bit of progress since we started. As we go to the next slide, please. So, just for those that may not know, there's 118 new council rented homes on the site. There's 236 homes in total. So that's 50% of the scheme is affordable. They are all heated by all of the flats are heated by a combined heat and power plant in the basement car park, and there's a heating distribution network. EV charging points, we have charging points at all houses, and in the basement car park we have 10 active, and the remaining 40 spaces are passive, so that basically means that the ducting is all in ready for them to be livened up as and when needed. There was a £200,000 allocation for public art on the site. There's a BREEAM Excellent Community Centre, which is hoping should soon be open. There's landscape play parks and children areas, one of which is recently opened, so that's now ready and open to the public. And there was a £3.5 million contribution, Section 106 contribution towards local schools, parks, and various aspects of the local community. Go to the next slide, thank you. So to date, we have handed over 54 of the 118 affordable and 92 of the 118 private units. The first area of public open space is open, that's at the Hooper Street end, and there's a play park there as well, which again, that says fully open to the public. The community centre, which we'll talk about later, that's due for completion in September, October this year, and that again will be open, ready to use. There is some issues with parking on site at the moment, so there is going to be a traffic regulation order implemented, which will cover the whole site, which basically will stop people parking on the roads, and that people will have to use the garages that they bought with the property or the parking spaces they brought with the flats. And there will be visitors parking as well, which will be bookable by the Ringo app. There will be charges, but that hasn't been confirmed yet, but there will be a minimal charge. And the scheme is due to be fully complete in November of this year. So just a few images of where we are. So this is the private block, overlooks the one of the open public open spaces, which there'll be some public art on. This is the one next door, which is an affordable block, which overlooks the same area. These are the houses opposite the public open space. And then this is one of the last affordable blocks that this backs onto, or onto the Hooper Street end of the site. And then we just quickly move on to Cromwell Road. Again, this image was taken the same time as the Mill Road one. We were a little bit further behind on Cromwell, but as it started a little bit later. So if we then move on to just a brief of what we're doing there. So there's 118 council rented homes of 295 in total. So that's 40% affordable. Same heating system, which is a combined heat and power plant, which is based in the basement, and it's on a heat distribution network. We have 13 active spaces and 61 passive in the basement, and then all the houses again have their own charge points. A new nursery has been created, which will hopefully open very soon. They're there at the moment. There is quite a large public area, open space in the middle, which will have some aspects of public art, some nice planting and some play equipment in there as well. And there's also another 3.6 million of Section 106 contribution towards the local area as well. So progress to date, we have 26 affordable units handed over, 47 private units handed over. We're in discussions with a nursery provider, so we will hopefully be able to release details of that quite soon. Again, same situation as Mill Road, where we are looking to implement a traffic regulation order, or TRO, to cover the areas of the site to limit parking and allow people to use obviously their own parking space, and there'll be again visitor spaces in the basement car park. Currently the scheme's due to complete March of next year. And these are just some images. In the distance, they're the private units, and the four in the foreground are the affordable units. These are just some private units that are currently being built. This, and again, is private, and then the one on the end is an affordable. And these are the key contacts for both sites. There'll be, obviously, the presentation is being recorded, but please make notes of those if you want. Any construction concerns, dust, parking, various bits like that, then it's Nick Mills, the guy you need to speak to. Day-to-day site concerns is Hill, and then there's my contact details there for anyone that needs to contact me.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Can I just make a brief note to people in attendance? What I'm suggesting we do is, I've noticed there's folk already putting up their questions for, their hands for question. So I have spotted, Jose, that you've put, Jose, sorry, forgive me if I pronounced it wrong. I am aware that you put your hand up, but if we take the questions at the end of the presentations, if that's okay, but I have noted your name. So thank you, Mark. If we move on to the Ironworks, Timberworks Public Art Programme. So over to you, Claire.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Claire Phillips, and I'm the project manager for Resonance Cambridge, which is the public art programme for the new homes being developed by KIP across Cambridge. Resonance Cambridge is looking to deliver a programme of artworks and events that connect people and place. So this evening, I'm going to provide kind of a very, very brief overview of two of the sites, Ironworks and Timberworks, so Mill Road and Cromwell Road. And the first slide, or first series of slides, relate to Ironworks. So this set of works is a series by Tom Pearman called the Lever series, and it references domestic and industrial switches that can tell a lot and convey a lot about an area and its heritage and the nature of what has the history to that location. So on the left-hand side, you have the steam lever switch, and in the middle, the train signals. And to the left-hand side, you've got his Pi stalls. Pi was a manufacturer of TVs and radios locally, and the design of the knobs on the TVs are quite iconic, and it's a manufacturer that's synonymous with Cambridge. And then just to the bottom of the screen, you can see what is proposed for the new community centre, which will also have a series of these switches above the entranceway. So if you want to go on to the next slide. This is a very sneak preview of the second artist that's working on the site, Joe Chapman. This is a photo of the bronze piece that is going to be installed mid-June into the gardens at Ironworks. It's the bronze that has just come out from being cast, so it's just been tacked together, and it references a Headley factory that used to be on the site, and also will have colour on it that references the site's former use as a depot. So the piece will change quite significantly between now and when it actually gets installed. And then the other programme that we're running at Timberworks is the Blue Plaque project. Hopefully you'll have seen some of these in the streets in and around Ironworks. We're working with Helen Weinstein from Ironworks, who is researching the history of the occupants and occupations of former residents and creating these blue plaques. So there's a number of streets that have already been done. The next set of streets are Kingston, Sturton and Sleaford. So if anybody is interested in being part of this project, then please contact either Resonance Cambridge, which you can go do via the website, or Helen directly through Historyworks. So the second phase, as I said, is Kingston, Sturton and Sleaford, and then the third phase will be Gwyder, Milford, York, Stone Street and Abbey Walk. So hopefully some of you will get involved in that project. Okay, next slide, please. So the second site, Timberworks, Cromwell Road. This proposal is by an artist called Michael Pinsky, and his practice is very much concerned with the environment, and he creates works that communicate and explores issues around environmental practice. So the pavilion proposal is highlighting climate change, and the central funnel that you see within the proposal, rainwater will fall through that and then go down through the floor, and it will also be augmented by sound effects as well that highlight climate change. So it's designed as a meeting place for people, residents and people using the area. The actual location of the pavilion is proposed to be up the top end of Timberworks, sort of quite near where the nursery is, and it can host up to 12 people, but can also be used as by individuals as well. Okay, if you want to go on to the next slide. And then the two other artists working at Timberworks are Alec Finley and Emma Smith. Emma Smith's proposal is the lower piece, and it's a set of musical railings that can be played by people by running a stick along them. And the musical score has been created from recordings of plants and their communication between each other below the soil. So if you happen to be a member of any of the allotments locally, you may well have been involved in this project and actually seen Emma doing some of these recordings. Emma has also created a website called Flupec, and on this it has a number of different activities that people can do to explore the environment in their local area. So if you want to find out more about the proposal and this particular project and do any of these activities, then please go to that website afterwards and I can provide the actual website address. And then Alec Finley, he's a poet and a sculptor, His commission is to develop works for across all of the KIP sites, so linking them. And the title of his series is called The Sun Spoke, and it's a word play and visual play on both the sun and the rays coming out, the trellis piece. This is the trellis piece to the left-hand side of the screen. So it's a play on words and also a visual play. It talks about the sun and its restorative properties. He developed quite a lot of these designs during lockdown. And it also references bicycles as well, and bicycles being quite synonymous with Cambridge. If you go to the next slide. He creates a series of what he refers to as living sculptures. And on these, they have poems written. So throughout all of the sites, there'll be bird boxes with poems on, finger posts with, again, with poems on, and beehives. The beehives, I should say, don't have any bees in. They're not live hives. They're just vehicles to host the poems. And each of the poems also reflect on the sort of ecology, heritage and culture of that area. So they're points in the landscape that make you stop and reflect. So that's the end of the presentation. Hope you've enjoyed having a quick overview of what's being installed in the sites. If you want to find out more, please go to the Resonance Cambridge website, where there is more information, and you can also sign up to a newsletter. Thank you.
Claire, there will be some questions coming your way, I think, so
Okay.
hold on. Although Martin has already indicated he liked the reference to pie in the chat, which I think will go down well, I think. And just for warning, the name of the Ironworks artists again on their websites, please. So that might be something to check later on. Okay, thank you, Claire. There's also a couple of questions about process, Steph, that I quite wonder if this is starting. We can see the questions, but I know from Councillor Dave Bajan, others can't. Is there a reason for that?
I do apologise. I think it must be just the settings that were on the webinar format that we've used. So I do apologise about that, because obviously that means that questions might be duplicated.
Okay.
The same with individuals' names as well. So for future meetings, I'll make sure that those settings aren't as such.
Okay, I think hopefully in future, this I know is due to be in the flesh anyway, so hopefully, and this is just trying to, so Dave, apologies, and as I say, it's not out of any desire to hide the questions. I think it's more about the technology. Okay, Steph, thank you ever so much. Okay, should we move on, Steph? So the slide after Claire's last slide, are we on to that one now? Facilities, yes. Over to Diane. Welcome.
Thanks, Mike. So my name's Diane Hicks. I'm the Operations and Resources Manager at Romsey Mill. We're jointly managing the new community centre with PACT, Petersfield Area Community Trust. So just briefly, we'll talk about the facilities. The photo here is quite dated now. We took that photo in January when we had a site visit. And you can see us standing in what will be the main hall area. It's going to be a large hall with a sprung floor, so it will be ideal for dance events and activities. The hall can also be divided into two, so it's got a pull across screen that will be soundproofed as well. Outside of that hall, there is going to be a really lovely outside area that can be used by groups that are using the hall. And it can also be accessed independently from an internal corridor within the building. Just off the hall, and one of the, if the hall is divided into two, one of the halls has a hatch area to a fully fitted kitchen. We're currently making a shopping list of all of the things that we want in the kitchen. It's going to be well equipped and fully fitted. And then just behind the kitchen, near the entrance to this community centre, there's going to be a large meeting room where it will be suitable for small group work, meetings, training, things like that. And then at the entrance there'll be a small room. It will double up as an office, but also a room that can be used as one-to-one meetings or counselling therapy type activities. If we could have the next slide, Steph, thank you. So just kind of over the Christmas period and into January, Romsey Mill and Pact ran a public consultation regarding the naming of the centre. We collated the results. Those results then went back to the council, and the exec councillor, along with councillors for the areas, looked at the consultation, and we decided together on the name. And the naming of the building has been confirmed as Mill Road Community Centre. That was the name out of the ones that we presented as a short list for people to look at, and also out of the ones that came back as suggestions to us. That was the name that was the most popular amongst the public. So how will the centre be used? We had a really successful and well-attended meeting at the end of April, where Pact and Romsey Mill invited members of the community and local groups to come and talk about their hopes for the centre and activities that they would like to be running. So our key aim is to be providing an inclusive space that is inviting and that will meet the needs of the local community, running lots of different groups that meet different age groups. Like I say, we've already had an awful lot of interest. We've got people waiting to know what our hire prices will be and when we will be opening, so that they can start booking regular activities. So it is really exciting. There'll be after school groups, there'll be daytime groups for families and young children, there'll be evening groups. We've got interest from people doing drama, music, dancing, quizzes, you name it. We've had inquiries about it. So we are really excited to be opening the centre. As mentioned earlier, it will be September, October time. We're not definite on a date yet, but it's going to be towards the end of September at the earliest. Obviously, as well as community activities, we want to keep our costs as low as possible for local community groups, but we do have to meet the costs of running the centre, so we will have to attract some commercial use as well. Finally, how can people get involved? I'm sure you're all aware centres like this don't run themselves, and while we will have some paid staff, and Romsey Mill and Pact will be jointly working together to keep the centre open each day of the week, we are going to need volunteers to help us. We're going to need volunteers to help run activities, help with fundraising. We are going to be running regular community events, and we're going to be doing publicity and raising awareness. So if you're interested in helping us at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. At the moment, we're only a very small team of people, and we want to grow that as the interest for the facility grows.
Okay. Thank you very much, Diane. And before we move on to the questions, again, can I just, in terms of process, Steph, there are questions coming back about information. We'll repeat it at the end. Are we going to be able to send out the sort of contact details to those who are in attendance this evening?
In terms of the contact details, I can only see people's individual names. If there's anybody, I'm happy to share those names of people, if that's a request, and maybe if anybody didn't want their name shared, then they could drop that into the chat that they don't want that to happen. I
think it sounds like the easiest thing is to contact you, would it be, if they want particular details? So it might be if we let people have your details as the main contact, and then you can send it to the right places. So is that okay? So should we move on to the questions? Now we've had quite a few already coming in, and if I read, is it easier if I read them out, Steph, from people, and then is that the way we want to do it?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, and then I can read the response. Yeah. Okay.
And now, Jose, I think, forgive me, Jose, if it's pronounced differently. You did raise your hand. I can't see an actual question, so it's just about whether we can hear you. Unfortunately, we can't. But if you want to type in the questions, I can.
I can unmute Jose. So bear with me a moment, and I can go through and.
Okay. Shall I ask? Okay.
So it's finding his name.
Parry, Jose Parry.
Is he still? Oh, here. Bear with me.
please bear with us while we get the technology working.
Yeah, okay, that should work for you.
Can you hear us? Jose, can you speak?
So it takes a moment to drop through.
Here he is, connecting. Okay.
Doesn't seem to be any
Okay.
sound associated with him.
No, maybe if we take a different written question. So there's a thing to Pixel. When will the charging point be installed in the ground parking behind Mulberry building on the Cromwell site, please? So that sounds like one for Mark.
Yeah, the basement, I assume we're talking of the basement car park. There are a number of them already installed, and they'll be going live once the car park is open. I think from memory it was 13 that will be active at the point where we open the basement car park up. And then the 61 remaining passive ones down there will be put online as and when required. So it'll be monitored on how those 13 are being used, and if they're being used a lot and people are struggling, then the rest will be activated.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And I think the next one is also for you. When will the access control be implemented at that car park?
At the same time, so that will be when the car park opens. There'll be an ANPR camera, so you will need to register your registration plate with the management company to ensure you don't get a parking ticket. And then you'll be, I think it's probably on a fob system, so you'll have a fob to get in. And then anyone who parks there who shouldn't be parking there will be getting a ticket, or anyone who's visiting and outstays their time will also get a ticket. So that will all be going active, and you'll all be informed, you'll be written to by the council or the management company prior to that happening.
Thank you, Mark. And I now know what Jose's question, and again, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing. Who makes up KIP? KIP, I can answer that one. KIP is a company that was set up by the City Council in conjunction with Hill, the builders, to try and address housing needs within the city. And so far, the two main sites are at Cromwell Road and Mill Road. And we address housing need by offering a mixture of tenure. So about 45% of the houses that have been built are council homes, and the other 55% are for sale, some of which are apartments and some of which are homes across the site. So that's what KIP is and how they were set up and what they were set up to do. And so far, we've delivered quite successfully, I think, and within timescales and within budget. So it's been a successful partnership so far. And again, as I say, it's to address predominantly our needs to deliver council housing, but also with sale. The other bit about KIP is that sales that come from the market are reinvested into the council again, so we can build more council houses. So it's about trying to make sure we operate in an innovative way to deliver against housing needs. So that's what KIP is. What does BREEAM stand for? Now that's one I might have to hand over to a more technical mind. Mark, do you know what BREEAM is?
No. It's a process that evaluates buildings' performances. So it's kind of like a passive house, as is a name, a commonly marketed name for domestic housing. BREEAM is in effect the same kind of thing for commercial units and play and nurseries and things like that.
Okay. I'm just going through the questions, so bear with me. So I think, Mark, you're going to be hit quite a lot on this, but the next one is what impact assessment has been done on the impact of parking in neighbouring streets around Cromwell Road, with parking being restricted on the development?
I saw that one come through, and I was trying to find out the answer to that. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. It would have been part of the planning process, so there would have been traffic assessments done. If we have a contact detail, I can pop your details through to the planning team, and they can respond with what was actually done. There would have been a traffic assessment done, a traffic management plan, but I haven't got access to that, so I don't know the full detail.
Something's popped up in the Q&A saying Vicky Hayward is going to answer this question live. Is that? I wasn't expecting that. But I don't know where that's come from.
Sorry, that's I'm using Vicky's webinar link. So if it says that, it's just because I'm ticking the answers off.
Okay.
The questions. Yeah.
Right, if I carry the next one, I think me. It says here, hi, both housing developments was this is from Ole Schultz-Schiglaf. Both housing developments were supposed to address the local housing shortages, but there was a recent article in the Independent saying the housing and Timberworks development were advertised in Asia. They are also extremely expensive. We are quoted in excess of 650k for a 3-bedroom house. This one is for me. There was some marketing done for private purchases in Hong Kong just over a year ago. And this was because at that time, because of COVID, housing sales within the city had dropped off, and we were struggling to sell property, and it was important to try and get some momentum going. So what KIP did was to hold an event with other property sellers in Hong Kong, because we'd had interest from HK residents and private individuals who were looking to come back to the city or to work and live in the city. There was a due diligence process that was undertaken, whereby only one purchaser could have one property, because we were keen to avoid property developers coming, as you can probably imagine. Of the 295 properties that are available for purchase, 21 were purchased by people from Hong Kong. And once house sales picked up again, there's been no subsequent marketing abroad. So the Independents saying house and timbers were advertised. Now, it was done, as I say, last May, and I think it was a second event late summer, but it was in response to particular issues at the time, which were driven by COVID. I hope that answers the question. In terms of the, if I'm just going backwards to it, I think there was, it's about, again, trying to address it. Oh, there was a question about the price. That's the price of the market homes, obviously, is driven by the market in Cambridge. But what we tried to do is to look at a range of options. Obviously, apartments are cheaper. I think what's raised for me, and I think something's a broader issue, and I'd hate to speak on behalf of the group, but it's about looking at our tenure offers. So it's how we can offer a different range of tenures to people across the city. So I hope that's answered Ule's question. Next one up is one for Diane, I think. Emma has asked, there are a lot of community centres and halls in the area. Most notable one directly opposite the junction between Mill Road and St Barnabas Road. These community centres are run by charities, so struggling to keep the centres running. Why do you think it's appropriate to provide a further community centre in a local area which would harm those charitable run community centres by taking their business? So maybe if Diane starts that off, well, I'm not sure, it probably is for Diane, but it's in the area of the community centre. Diane.
Sorry, just unmuting myself. We're certainly not trying to take business. Romsey Mill themselves run 2 community centres at the moment, our own centre and Ross Street Community Centre. My understanding is that when developments are done, that a certain amount of funding has to go into providing facilities for the local community, because obviously with the increased population in the area, that means that there needs to be more space and availability for people to be able to do activities. And so my understanding is that that's why there is a community centre in the area. And certainly the groups that are inquiring to us about using the facilities that came to the meeting that we held at the end of April, they're not groups that are currently using either Romsey Mill or Ross Street, which are very close. So we certainly don't see that as competition.
Okay. The next question is from Pixel, who's asking his question, I suppose back to the earlier question to Mark. His question was really about the ground car park instead of the basement car park. Mark, can you want to any response to that? Hello. Oh, have we lost Mark?
Sorry, I am here. My computer's going very slowly. Sorry, yeah, I saw that come through. The with regards to the management of the ground on the carpet you're talking about, that is the same. That will be done via probably an ANPR camera. You'll be notified beforehand. With regards to the charging points, they will fall again. There's 13 in the basement. Once they become used, then they will start to activate the ones in the basement and on the ground level as well. If you're in and you want to access one of the charging points in the ground floor, you obviously can book a visitor space if you haven't already bought a space in the basement, and visitors can use those charging points as well.
Okay. There's been a couple of comments from Emma in the chat about the Asia. I'm afraid, Emma, it wasn't advertised in Asia prior to COVID. The 2 dates it was advertised were in last May and I think it was August. So I'm afraid I don't know where you've got that information from, but it's not accurate. And in relation to your comment about I tried to purchase a plot in October 2019, I was told I would be informed as soon as it became available. But 6 months later, when I chased it about it, I was told it had been sold abroad. There are still plots available, Emma. So if you want to contact people, please do. And I'm sure the sales team will be delighted to hear from you. So I hope that helps, Emma. And if you have further questions, Emma, please don't hesitate to drop me an email. Right, next question down the list is the access to Timberworks is quite dangerous as it turns into a double width road, a single width road on the corner. I've seen a few near misses there. What is the council and Hill doing to address this hazard? So it's back again, I think, to a highways issue. So Mark, I think this is probably one for you.
Yeah, it is a highways issue. Part of the planning process was a traffic management plan, and it did take into account access in and out of the site. It was a long time ago before I was involved in the scheme, so I can't comment on actual detail. But that's a county council highways issue. They are the guys that maintain those roads in that area. So I think look at any complaints that you see or any images you see really need to be reported through to the highways department, and then they can address that.
Okay, so I think there's a couple of questions around that. Emma, I think, just asked an earlier question which I missed, so apologies. And I think there's also a question there about, so if we can pick that up, that'd be great. I think there's a highways issue, I suspect. Anyway, next up is a second question from Ole regarding the nursery in Timberworks. You said that negotiations with the nursery provider are ongoing, but they've now received a leaflet from a family club advertising a nursery at the Timberworks site. The nursery is very expensive, £1,600 a month. And has a decision been made? And if yes, why was such an expensive provider chosen? So I'm not quite sure who wants to answer that one. Is that one for Alison? If you're in the room, could you answer that one?
Hi, sorry, Dave. It's really slow to connect.
It's
not actually a question. It's not a question for me, actually. This is a commercial negotiation for the nursery with our property team. That's being led by our property team. So it's a commercial transaction, not a community facility provision.
Okay. So therefore, I think the question is that there are negotiations ongoing, and clearly the decision to, so obviously somebody has advertised. As to the costs and what they're charging, that would not be either our property team, that would be the actual provider who chooses, who identifies the costs. So I'm afraid, I can't work out what we'll be able to do about that. So apologies there. But clearly, if it's being advertised, if places are being advertised already, and clearly a decision has made, but we can clarify that for you and come back to you if that's okay. Okay, next question from anonymous attendee. Are there any updates on when the Chisholm Trail will be finished? And that is a very good question. I'm not sure, though, who's in the best place to answer that one. I assume you're referring to, if you could clarify which bit, because obviously the Chisholm Trail is a very lengthy trail and there are issues around the station as well as, so is it just in relation to, well, which of the sites? If anonymous attendee could give us a clue, that'd be really helpful. Okay. Right. let's
Mike,
go back.
we did also have a response in the questions beforehand as well, so I'm happy to.
Yeah, are you able to do something with that, Steph?
Yeah, I'm happy to read that one out. Bear with me, I'll just go and locate it. Okay, so we had a response from the GCP around the trails. So they're due to consult on the plans for the Coldham's Lane junction and the section along Cromwell Road in the summer. So they'll provide more information to the public when these launch. And in terms of the section under the Mill Road Bridge, they're actually still in discussions with the Network Rail on that one. So it is ongoing, but as Mike says, it's a very lengthy kind of process that they're doing it in stages at the moment.
Okay. Oddly enough, it's linked to an earlier question, which is from Martin about any progress on residents parking for York Street and Ainsworth Street. Why I say that is because obviously one of the access and egress points on the Petersfield side in relation to Chisholm Trail is, of course, going down Ainsworth Street. My understanding is that the Petersfield councillors are certainly asking the GCP, who are now responsible for parking, to prioritise York Street and Ainsworth Street and to review that. But there'll obviously be a ballot again. I know Dave Bagent's on the call. He might want to put something in the chat, and he'll probably have better knowledge, as might Katie Thornborough. But at the moment, we're still waiting for our request that should be prioritised, and that will also affect the Chisholm Trail, as I say, on the Petersfield and Mill Road side. Right, going back to the questions. This is David. Right, David, hello. Yes, this is the Chisholm Trail that connects Ironworks to the station. I think I've probably I answered your question because it also involves the new or potential development on the old Devonshire Gardens, Devonshire Road site, that the what they're called. It obviously has to go across there. So if again, maybe if we take that back, Steph, David's questions around the Chisholm Trail, it sounds like it's important. And again, just to reassure Ule about the nursery, I think you've got my email address, Ule, please contact me and give us Travis Perkins. Thank you. Jose noted my lack of brain power, so thank you, Jose, thank you. So Ule, yes, please get in touch. Now, are there any more questions in the chat or in the Q&A section? Otherwise, we'll move on to the questions we've received from people in advance. How does that sound? Does that sound like a wise move, Steph?
Mike, can I just, I see Pixels commented again about parking. If you're able to message me direct, it looks to me as though you've brought a space with your property, and then I can contact the sales team at Hill and hopefully get an answer for you on that.
Is that okay, Pixel? Oh, that'd be great. So going back then, we have in advance of the meeting received a range of written questions. And so just to read some of these out, some are quite long, so please bear with me. And what I'll do is ask then Steph to give the answer where appropriate. So the first one is around landscaping at Timberworks. The new houses at the southern end of the site are directly overlooked by existing houses on Cavendish Road. Currently, a row of mature alder trees along the boundary provides some screening as well as a haven for wildlife. With this in mind, and given the Council's green agenda, could you explain the Council's view regarding Hill's recent planning request to remove protection of a row of trees to allow Hill to fell them? The admission of the tree specialists employed by Hill, all these trees could be effectively managed rather than felled. Again, the tree survey indicated that half of these trees are totally undamaged by the build and are perfectly healthy, and therefore despite being proved by Hill in contravention. The other half of these protected trees have suffered some limited root damage. Now, I know there is a site visit planned because I know that Ian Liversidge has been in touch with Dave Bagent. But do you want to comment, Steph? Do you want to read out what the answers we've received?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So this is a response from the tree officer, Joanna, from the City Council.
Right.
And she said that our site visit confirmed that the extensive damage to the roots of the older trees to the rear of Cavendish Road had resulted from excavations carried out on the Timberworks development. The damage was sufficient to have compromised the structural integrity of several of the trees along and the long-term healthy retention of all the trees. So from a technical perspective, they've actually, the plan is the removal and replacement was assessed the most pragmatic way to ensure a safe and long-lived tree screen in this location. So from a biodiversity replacement planning, they're looking at placing a variety of recommended trees that can supply large instant impact trees. So she's listed a few trees. So Acer trees, I'm not really a tree specialist, but Alanus, a Betaluna, I'm not quite sure how to say that one. Maybe I'll go with the other names. There's some easier names. So Lancita and a green spire. So it has been agreed that the removal and replacement will be carried out simultaneously to reduce the impact on neighbouring properties once a tree species are agreed. Hill will apply for permission to amend the existing landscape proposals. This will include some lowering of the land to the rear of the disabled access property, retaining the structures installed to the rear of the remaining properties, maintained the levels and the boundaries. So once the landscaping is agreed, it will be the intention to apply a tree preservation order to the new trees located within the private plots.
Thank you for a very full answer. I think if I can be short, as I say, I know that Ian has contacted Dave, and I'm sure Dave, being the councillor is, will want to include residents. So please speak to Dave about that. And so there's a view to having a site visit. The next question we received in advance is about what is happening to the nursery. We've already covered that, I think. And then the next one is about access. When will the access to Mill Road via Cavendish Road be open? So Steph, do you want to respond to that one?
Yeah, so it's a much shorter response. So yeah, so this will be open once the two houses to the rear have been handed over. So these have been delayed due to the company providing the utility connections going into liquidation. So there has been a few problems around this. So they anticipate the completion to now be around August 2020.
Okay, thank you, Steph. The next question relates to car parking and traffic on Headley Street, which is one of the new streets on the Ironworks site. And there's particular concerns around children's safety. Steph.
So it was agreed that the county highways approved the initial plans, so that's without any speed humps at all. So essentially, once that goes through and the county council have taken over the land, then if anything like that wanted to happen, it would be a case of speaking to the county council.
Okay, there is a number of questions related to this. I wonder if we need to pick up a county council highways officer and for people to Cromwell estate to meet with them to have further discussions, if that would make sense. We've got the things. So that's about Ironworks. Moving back onto Timberworks, onto Cromwell Road. What plans are there to help the problem of speeding vehicles on Cromwell Road? Well, now, I'm not sure if that's one for relation to this meeting, but maybe it's one we could pick up elsewhere. And I wonder if it's worthwhile just contacting your Romsey County Councillor about that one, because he's obviously, Neil Shaler might be the person to ask about that. And then, do we have any updates on the Chisholm Trail on Cromwell Road? So I was wittering on about the Petersfield side. Do we know what's happening in relation to the Cromwell, the Romsey side? Mark, do you have any update on that one?
There is a section at the rear of that will be handed over at the point when the scheme's finished, whenever, I think it's March next year. So there will be a section. How that's connecting to the Chisholm Trail, I don't know, but there will be a section handed over at the end of the spring.
It sounds like a fuller update on Chisholm Trail on both sides might be helpful for people who come to this meeting. Next one, status of bike access across Mill Road, towards Mill Road. So who wants to pick that up? Do you want me to answer that? Sorry, Steph, do you want to pick that? Or?
Oh, sorry, I thought somebody else had chipped in there. I think again it was an answer that was kind of combined with the Chisholm Trail one, really. That yeah, that's what I'd say. That's the information that we have at the moment. But I think, as you say, so some further information would be useful around that. Okay, right. We then move on to questions in relation to the playground completion date at Timberworks. Is that one for Mark?
Yes, so there's some play equipment going in at Timberworks, and that is aimed to be completed towards the end of the summer. I think it was July were the dates that we were given. So that the park area in the main park area there is going to be handed over in 2 sections, and that's in the first section, which will be sort of July time.
Thank you. Next up, we have lighting issues. While the grounds are being maintained well, and I see ground staff are there, 3 of the pole lights around the walkways, grass and play park area, so this presumably relates to Ironworks, have been broken for several weeks. So this is about ongoing maintenance, really, about lighting. Who wants to pick that one up?
I can touch on that. The Bollard Lighting that we have at Mill Road is not fit for purpose. So we've noticed quite a few of them. I think when I was there, probably a good 30% of them had been damaged. So the damaged ones have been disconnected, so they're not live, and we're seeking replacement to replace them all with something that's more substantial. And then they'll be replacing them all with something so we don't continue to have this problem. But do bear with us on that. We are just trying to find something that's a little bit better quality.
Thank you, Mark. Then off from lighting, we move on to renewable energy. So we've got a question here. Is it possible to install ground source heat pumps before putting the landscaping in the middle of Timberworks? Gas heating is unsustainable in the long run. Mark?
In short, no, it isn't possible. We've got a huge amount of drainage, sustainable urban drainage underneath these schemes. We've also got basement car parks under them, so there isn't a lot of ground. When we have looked at doing it elsewhere, it's extremely expensive because of the tight areas within the city. You have to do boreholes rather than actually spread it out. So you have to dig down very, very deep. And what that can also cause, if you have too many in a small area, it can cause the whole area to become really cold. So it doesn't actually work if you haven't got enough space. So at Millwall and Cromwell, we definitely didn't have enough space to do that. We're on newer schemes. We are looking at air source heat pumps at the moment and other forms of technology because ground source just doesn't work on these huge schemes when you've got such small areas. It's important to actually stress that although we have got gas heating at Mill Road and Cromwell, they did perform far better than the local plan and the planning at the time, or the conditions at the time. So at the time when planning went through, they were actually performing very, very well.
Thank you. Then we've got some additional questions. First was about there's a couple of questions in relation to the schooling and kids coming who live on the Ironworks and Timberworks sites. And again, Mark, do you want to pick up both of those in relation to the implications for schooling?
Yeah, I think this kind of refers back to what was said earlier in some of the slides. When these large developments or any large development happens, there is contributions that you have to make towards local communities through the Section 106 agreement, which is done by the local authority. And I think in combining both Mill Road and Cromwell, there's been over 7 million that we've contributed towards schooling, towards the NHS and various other aspects. And then it's for those authorities then who run or govern the schools to decide what they want to do with the money.
Okay. Thank you very much. Then there's a couple of questions about completion dates, which I can quickly answer. Ironworks, completion of Ironworks site is still for autumn this year, and the completion of the community centre, again, the handover date is September this year. So we seem to be on track for those. The next question, when will the commercial sites be open? Is the next question. Pick up. There's a couple of questions related to that. Any response?
I don't know the answer to that. No, it's not being, they're not being managed. I think Alison tucked. Well, no, that was actually the nursery, but no, the commercial units aren't being managed by the city council. So it's something we can find the answers and come back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. So those are the written questions on the whole that we've gone through. I'm just going back to the Q&As and the chat. I've not seen anything. Here's one that I've missed. Right, in fact, there's a couple here, forgive me. Is there going to be a community room at the Timberworks site? Alison.
Yeah, I'm happy to pick this one up, Mike. We did an assessment to look at existing community facilities in the area and what was needed to provide extra facilities for the community. And the Mill Road Community Centre will be the facility provision that provides for both new communities. It's within a 15-minute walk time for Cromwell Road and the Mill Road residents, obviously. So there's no need to put extra community facilities on the Cromwell Road site. The new Mill Road Centre will meet the additional pressure on community facilities in the local area.
Okay, if I go then back, there's some other questions within the chat. So if I go from the bottom upwards, is the lighting biodiversity friendly?
I'm not sure what is meant.
Okay.
It's low energy lighting.
I think that's probably what it's meant.
Yeah. But it's all LED lighting.
Okay. The next, here's a standard. Here's one from Emma about an ongoing issue around parking, about employees and contractors blocking in and out of residents. This also replicates issues that were faced at the Ironworks development as well. What's the current process about reporting contractors who may be causing problems on the various sites and about where they should be parking or not? Who's the person? I'm afraid, Mark, it's probably one for you, I think.
It's probably one for Hill. Unfortunately, they're not here. In fact, Lynn, do you have anything to say on that?
Yes, sorry, I thought, oh, I am here.
Yeah, sorry.
Lynn. Forgive me, Lynn. You weren't, because your face wasn't lit up. I should have asked you. Forgive me. I'm very sorry.
No, sorry, I hid it because it was easier in the end. What we do, if anyone's got any queries about the parking, we do encourage them to ring the 0800 number, and then we do look into it because we keep a log when we do our toolbox talks and induct people. So I would encourage people, if they have got a problem, we will look into it. There hasn't been many calls recently, I've got to say that, regarding parking.
But in terms of Emma's question, I think one of the issues that we felt, certainly on my side of the tracks, please let Hill and Lynn know if there are ongoing issues, because it's only by being aware of them that we can do our best, even if it's not always successful. It's often about subcontractors. So if you could, Emma, just keep in touch. I suppose Lynn's the obvious person to contact. That's okay.
There's also Nick Milne at the City Council, who works for Consider It Contractor, which he'll sign up to. So Nick Milne can be contacted. His details were on the slides earlier. He'll be more than happy to take your questions and queries on parking.
He is listening to this conversation as well, I think you'll find.
Is he? Okay.
That's great, Lynn. Thanks for that. So reading up from the bottom, are there plans yet confirmed for the old Victorian Library on Mill Road will become? From Marcus, there is ongoing discussions, and that's not meant to be overly secret. Hill will be using the building until I think it's September for their as a site base, and thereafterwards the county council will be looking at the use, and there are, as you can probably imagine, all sorts of suggestions being put forward at the moment as to how that listed building and that lovely listed building can be used. So I think the answer there is probably keep your eyes open, and people will be in touch when we have some news and some consultation to be in touch. Key bit there is that the county council owned building, and obviously they have responsibility for what happens to it in the long run. Okay. Jose's asked about hedgehog highways. Has anybody got anything they would like to say about hedgehog highways? I have to say I'm ignorant on this. I think Katie Thornborough is in the meeting, and I suspect she would probably be able to answer this, but I'm afraid I can't. So I've logged it, Jose. We'll try and get something back to you if that's okay.
We do have some information on that, and where there are gaps in fences and various bits and pieces. So there is a plan. I think it was part of the planning application, but there is a ecology plan that shows hedgehog highways.
Yeah, I was going to say that's right.
Okay. If I just pick up before I go back to where we've come from in terms of within the last question, I think we've not picked up in the chat. Before we go back to no, I think we've done that one. So the next thing is Emma, you've notified us that you think the culprits for parking is and thanks for the plates. That probably is something we can pick up. I think if Lynn, I don't know if you can see the chat, but you've been given a BMW and a number plate.
Okay, I think Steph will be able to pull that off for me. Can you see it, Steph? Is that all right? I'll catch it later.
Yes, I think I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll pick that up later then between us.
I've actually got photos of it as well, Lynn, so I can send those over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Right, next thing, if any resident has a particular issue, please make me aware as well. That's from Nick Mill. Okay, that's great. That's Nick Mill. Sorry. Why isn't Hill here tonight? And the answer is they are. Lynn is here. What shall we do when I smell weed in the council rent flats? Well, you need to report to the police, is the obvious answer. There's an issue on the other side of the Petersfield side of the tracks about drug dealing, not in the Ironworks side of Hayes Strason, but the only way people can do anything about it is if people independently report to the constabulary, and then you can build up a picture and then we can take it from there. So I'm afraid that's the answer to that one. Next one is about independent streets being adopted. There is already pavement parking going on. So Martin's asking about adoption of streets. Who's able to answer that one?
I can answer that, Mike. The process is already underway to have them adopted. The adoption process can be quite lengthy. So the roads will be maintained by Hill or KIP until they are adopted, but we hope they'll be adopted soon after the site is completed, once the final top is put onto the roads. So that should be within sort of hopefully 4 to 6 weeks after the site is actually fully handed over.
Okay. Steph, are you able to unmute Katie Thornborough, who I know is in the meeting?
Yeah.
And Councillor Thornborough can give some information on, and then while we're waiting for that to happen, when will street signs be installed for Clara Rackham Street? From Angela Tam. Do you know, Mark? Is that one for you?
I don't know. Do you know it, Lynn? I would have thought they should already be there, but they're obviously not. So
we'll pick that up and check that out.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that, sorry, Lynn. Forgive me if that's one for you. So is Katie in? Katie, can you unmute yourself and then you can?
Yeah, there we go.
Hello.
Great. Hello, Katie.
Yes. So for Timberworks, the Hills have agreed with the ecology officer where all the hedgehog doorways will be cut into the fences, and Hill have programmed it to ensure when they are cut and the hedgehogs can move around, there is limited construction traffic so that they don't get injured by the construction work. So That's still to be delivered. I'm not sure about Ironworks, but for all new homes now where we give planning consent and there are gardens, there will always have to be a hedgehog doorway cut in and as part of planning consents. And then for existing homes in Cambridge, if anybody wants a doorway cut in a timber panel garden fence, the City Council do provide a service. So they collect up the people who want them cut and they go out a couple of times a year to do those. And you can, if you're interested in having one done, you can send me a message and I'll get it added to the list. Thanks.
That's really helpful, Katie. Thank you ever so much. So again, for those of you wanting to contact people who work at the council, either councillors or officers, remember that it's straightforward. It's at cambridge.gov.uk and then put our names in advance. So for Katie, it's katie.thornborough, for me, Mike.davy. And that's the easiest way to catch above. And Katie, Jose's response, he's mentioned about, I don't know if Katie can see the chat. I think you can, and you'll have seen Jose's remarks there. Okay.
That's great, Jose. Thank you very much.
Okay. Right. Richard Robertson, Councillor Robertson's mentioned about that you can have parking restrictions. They don't have to be adopted streets. And Martin's come back. Richard, I'd be interested to hear more. If the streets are only adopted after the site is completed, there'll be a lot of bad habits developed to have to be rowed back with much difficulty. So I think Martin's making a very valid point there, is people will start to get into behaviour in advance. So I think that sounds, is that, again, I suppose it affects both sites, I suspect, Mark and Lynn, would that be fair?
It does. The traffic regulation order that we are implementing can be implemented in the City Council's name. So it can be action during or before adoption, and then once the roads are adopted, it then migrates over to the county.
Okay, right. So we're coming.
Just to add, sorry, we are in the process of putting the TROs on Mill Road at the moment, and soon to be doing it on Cromwell as well.
Okay, so I think unless the questions appear to have dried up, so I don't want to either stop it or prolong it, because I know people will be hungry, and but equally, if you've got any questions that don't come to mind now, I say please contact us. I'm going to go back to I think Steph, if you'd like to, if we can, and then bring the meeting to a conclusion, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was a couple more questions that came through on the prior to us starting the meeting. So there was one was, when will the bollards be installed in front of the sales office? So I think that we've got planters now preventing access through there. And the other one was just around fencing and the play park. And he'll have responded and said that the play park has been designed and installed in accordance with the approval plan.
Right.
So that's you know, everything's gone through there, so it won't have a fence around it at this time, but once it's been adopted by the City Council, it's currently with KIP, but once it's been adopted, that's something that if there is a great need, then something that the City Council can look at. Okay,
that's helpful. A couple more have come through in the Daniel has asked about speeding at Headley Street, which we've already touched on, I think. Emma's come up with another repeat offender for parking at Timberworks. So I hope if someone's got a note of that, they could pick that up. Mark, have you seen
now? I can see it now.
Okay, great. And Councillor Robertson Richard has asked about a letter that was going to be sent out regarding parking at Ironworks. Is that in relation to residents or contractors? I think it's about residents, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, there was a letter sent by ourselves at the City Council and the managing agent. So the City Council wrote to their residents, and the managing agent wrote to those private units to say that what was happening and that the parking restrictions were being put in place, and how to book visitor spaces in the basement. So those letters have gone out, and if you haven't had one, I mean, and I had lived the city council one, so I know they all went out, but the managing agent probably would have posted them. So there may be an issue if you haven't had those.
Well, I think Rich is just asking generally, has it gone? And I think the answer is yes, although Jake has just come back and he's not seen it yet. Could that be to do with people as they come onto the site rather than as they move in? Or
could be. They were sent probably two or 3 weeks ago.
Okay, maybe that's worth picking up, Mark, if that's possible.
Yeah,
And
I'll speak
maybe
to
a repeat delivery or something.
Jake, if you could just put in the comments whether you're a private tenant or a private occupant or a tenant, that'd be great.
Okay, so coming back to you, Steph, is going back to the agenda, is there anything that we think we need to cover off prior to concluding?
No, I think that's absolutely fine. What I will do is just for a few moments is share my screen, which has got a link to where a recording of this meeting will go. So that normally it takes about a week or so to upload, and I'll also put my email address as well on there. Okay,
that's great. If you want to do that, after we say farewell, or do you want to do it before we say farewell?
I can do it now, and then it's up there for people if they wish to.
That's great. And I think the other thing, so Steph will do that now. So people, if you want to rush and get a pen and paper or get your phone out and take a photograph, that's the place to go. Okay. In which case, unless there's anything further, I think I'd just like to say particular thanks to the panelists, even those who came and didn't say a great deal. So Mark, thank you for staying a lot, and thanks for everything. And Neil, thank you for coming just to be there. It's great support. But most importantly, thank you very much to Steph for organising this and setting it up. Much appreciated. I think, as I say, our commitment will be to do another one. What, in another 3 months or so, Steph? Is that the plan?
I think the hope is that once the community centre is up and running, that we'll actually have one in the community centre face to face. So it'll be more of an informal sort of gathering, hopefully.
But the key point is, and I hope this is subject, as long as things continue to improve relating to COVID, be in the flesh. And I think that will enable both formal and informal discussions to take place, which maybe, I hope, assist everything. Oh, there's a Daniel to everyone at the answer. I've got something at the bottom there from Daniel, which I can't read the full bit. Can you see that, Steph, at all?
I can. It's about speed, the speed bump. So once they're adopted, Daniel, it'll be with the county council, because the county council of highways engineers have approved the layout. And if there are issues, then you need to raise it directly to the county council, and then they can look into that for you. Does that I hope that answers your question.
And then there's now this last one before sorry to bring us back to question. I'll take this as the last question, because this actually is a really interesting one. How do post and packages work at Ironworks? Do postmen have access to the front reception, or do people let them in? That might be one for Lynn, is it?
As I understood it, it was controlled access. You have to, there's no trade button anymore, but I can get that information, because I know we would.
So I can comment on our affordable blocks, in that the postmen have a code and they can get in through the front door with a code. We're not allowed to use trade buttons on these particular units because they need to have a secure lobby. So they have got a code to get into those to be able to post. Packages and parcels is obviously they have to press the buzzer, and people have to let them in if they're big parcels.
So I think that's a really, thank you for that answer, Mark, and then a really practical question at the end there, but just because that's something that really is so significant. Okay, in which case, Steph, thank you very much, and thank you to all our contributors. Thank you to Claire, Alison, Diane, Mark, Lynn, and Neil. And we look forward to seeing you in the flesh sometime in the autumn, if not before. But thanks again to Steph for setting this up. Much appreciated. Okay, good night all. Have a good evening.
Cheers. Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Good night.